And now your favorite song. Bye-bye.
Welcome to Nursery, a podcast from Ohio's creative voice. This is a real radio show. I'm here with... No, it's not. You don't have to be quiet. I'm here with Pete Drivere. I'm going to give you my own intro, and you can correct me. You holding your phone, too? Good,
yeah,
good. Okay, he has a phone, too, and he's holding it by his mouth, so that's good.
Yes.
I'm in the Ampreon Recorder, which is, to me, a legendary recording studio in the Ward Bakery building downtown Youngstown, where Pete runs his gear, and it's been one of only two that we've ever used for professional recording throughout a career in my band Third Class. What Pete Drivere does outside of the studio and in it, I guess, is three things that I know of. Three legendary bands. One, the Infidels. Longtime Youngstowners will know them. Two, Pete Drivere and the Pretty Demons, a more personal project. Deep cuts of Pete Drivere as far as I'm concerned. Three, Deadbeat Poets, which is the current thing you've been working hard on. What do you have to correct me on?
I don't think I have to correct you on anything, but this is a musical interview. We're not delving into any political or...
It can be anything. It's all things.
Okay.
It's Ohio creative interview. And I think of you as a creative person in Ohio, so you can say anything you want.
Let's
create art. Let's create art. So you just mentioned to me when we were walking up the stairs here that you released another album of Deadbeat Poets.
The Deadbeat Poets have released Pop Detective, our label, has released a retrospective on us from 2007 to 2014. It's called Strange Tales from the Hussman Building, which, the building that the studio is located in is largely referred to as the Ward Bakery by a lot of people. But when I moved here, inside this building in 1985, it was referred to as the Hussman Building.
Building.
The Hussman Building, yeah.
So long-timers will think of it that way.
Yes, because after the Ward Bakery, the Hussman Refrigeration Company owned the building. Long story short, our record's called Strange Tales from the Hussman Building.
Oh, nice. That's
Yes.
And so you say that is it's a retrospective,
like a best of
an anthology,
greatest hits.
Yeah.
Instead of we haven't had any hits.
Right. But speaking of the ones that you put out as your hits, like as singles, they always struck me as like they were always kind of on the maybe Cheap Trick genre side. Like they were always like, bam, I don't know, not punky, not Ramones exactly, but they always just kind of hit hard, and they had. I don't
think
pop.
you know what you're talking about.
No, I know what I'm talking about, and I think that the singles were always just like hard rock straight ahead. Maybe you don't want to use Cheap Trick. That's who I think of.
I like Cheap Trick. What's wrong with Cheap Trick?
No, I love them. I actually really like them. But what I like on your albums are the quotes. Do you like
Cheap Trick as in Cheap Trick covering the move, or Cheap Trick?
I like Cheap Trick
covering ELO.
Dream Police. I like that song.
Going to a party. Like California
that's
Man.
On that same. I like Dream Police.
Okay.
Whatever the album that's on.
Okay.
And I love
off of the album Dream Police.
Yeah, is that right? Yeah. That really is.
Yeah.
I like what's that song on there? It's why'd you put me on the spot? Well, either ways, your deep cuts.
I like to stump the interviewer.
Yeah, really. You don't know what you're talking about, Lee.
He starts off gesticulating with his hands, talking into a microphone.
Yes, I think that you sound a lot like a Deep Trick. Deep Trick?
Deep Trick.
I was going to start to talk
to you
about.
Let's move on.
All right, deep cuts of the album before the one you're talking about.
Yes.
What's your 2014 album called?
Hallelujah Anyway.
Hallelujah Anyway by Deadbeat Poets.
Yes.
So there's a couple things that strike me on that. I haven't given it a thorough listen, but what strikes me and what I remember is Ain't Nobody But You or something. What's the title? Ain't Nobody But You.
Sure.
There ain't no one but you who can do the things you do to me. There ain't no one but me
The Bag I'm In.
The Bag I'm In.
There's no trouble in the bag I'm in. Now I'm too old to even try, and I don't care if I live or die. And now I'm standing on the bottom road, the dead rock bottom of
And
all I know.
what is it? Getting Over You?
Yes.
I've been here and I've been blue. I've done everything I thought that I should do. Well, I've been burned, but I've pulled through. But I don't think I'm getting over you.
You know 3 songs.
I know 3 songs, and
You've done your
they're
homework.
yours, probably, correct? They're the Pete Drivere style.
The Getting Over You is a Pete Drivere song.
Mm-hmm.
There Ain't No One But You, I sang lead on that. Frank Sisich wrote that. And The Bag I'm In is a Terry Hartman composition, which Terry
Oh,
sings.
really?
Yes.
Okay. So those ones, to me, show that you guys are eclectic, because there's a lot of straight rockers otherwise.
Mm-hmm.
So is that a push and pull? Are you like, hey, here are the Pete Drivere songs? They're more like pop and mid tempo, and these are the
No. I think within its own specific genre, or within the Deadbeat Poets, within it,
Yeah.
within the band genre, the songs are all over the place. In their styles, it's not it's not a very specific style of music. It's confined within the garage rock, power pop genres, but the songs are diverse.
Have you considered changing the name to Deep Trick?
No.
Since I said that, okay.
No. But I mean, just because you've just said it to me, I sometimes it takes a while for me to get used to a concept.
Mm-hmm.
So it could be possible that the next time that we do release a record, it will be called what do you say? Deep
Trick.
Deep Trick.
Yeah.
Deep Trick.
But have you now? Am I off base in naming them as one of your influences?
No, you're not off base whatsoever.
You guys, but there's not a push and pull personally in your guys' band as far as like we want to go a direction, correct? You like the eclectic, you like the being all over the place.
Yeah, I think the songs are written usually never with the band in mind. I mean, they're just written. Like the many writers in the band. Because everybody writes. And everybody presents songs. So, like, at least speaking for myself, I write a song. If I have the ambition to finish a song that I start, I mean, it's just because I like the song, and then I bring the song in, possibly, or I don't.
That's cool, and the band shares that perspective
Yes,
more or less.
yes.
So it's a nice loose idea on.
Yeah,
that's
it's
nice, yeah.
it's the loosest perspective you'll ever probably have in a band, actually.
Okay, so then the other 2 projects, Pete Drivere and the Pretty Demons. What do you want to say about that, if anything? Is that defunct now, or what's the deal?
No, I think that's kind of like my default thing when I don't have anything going on. I've actually recorded a couple Pretty Demons tunes within the last year or so, things that will be used for a future thing, but it's not anything I ambitiously pursue. I occasionally record songs for it, with my friends and I,
Yeah, sure.
But I've been putting more songs into the Deadbeat Poets as of late, so that kind of is the net I've been throwing some things into.
What can I play on this podcast in little intermissions of this interview? Do I not really have the right to play Deadbeat Poets because you're on a record label? Or should I play like Pete Drivere and the Pretty Demons, or can I play like whatever
no.
the hell I want?
You can play whatever you want.
Okay, cool. I'll stick with some Deadbeat Poets since that's the current thing. And then why don't you talk to me just a little bit about the Infidels? That's a legendary Youngstown act at this point.
Yes, the Infidels. The Infidels are a band that I started in, I don't know, around 1981 or 82. I don't remember the exact date right now. It's been a long time, and I was 14 years old when the band started, or roughly that age, and it's a band that has gone with me through the years. And right now in the Deadbeat Poets, 3 of the 4 Infidels are in the Deadbeat Poets.
Right. Right.
At this point, John Hlumick just recently joined the band playing bass in
Wow.
Deadbeat Poets. So it's I mean, we're not currently actively doing anything with the Infidels, and we played a few shows out of town a couple years ago. But
did you play one in-town show recently as well?
well,
At Cedars?
I wouldn't call it recent, but we
Not recent.
Since, let's say, the new Cedars has opened, and those of you that don't know what Cedars is,
Yeah.
listening, I guess you're just gonna have to find out what Cedars is.
Youngstown is synonymous with Cedars to some respect. So if you're a listener and you're not from Youngstown, look up Cedars Lounge, Youngstown, Ohio. See what you can dig up. Maybe you've been through enough where it's interesting to you. If not, don't worry. Just think of your mainstay club in a town.
Yes. So, I mean, the Infidels. We were talking about the Infidels, right?
Correct. Yeah.
Okay.
Recent show.
Recent shows, yeah. Since the Cedars moved, they were in a long time location, and they recently moved to a different location. We have done 2 shows there.
Okay, I came to one. It was really great. It was really loud.
It was that was the first one that we did. And then the second one we did was an acoustic show, and it wasn't as
Oh,
loud.
I didn't hear that. Okay. Well, that was great. That was cool. This was the first time I think for real that I got to see Infidels, surprisingly. And then, so off the thread of Cedars and your 3 acts, Pete Drivere being and the Pretty Demons the default act.
Yes.
I have a similarity to you in that I have 3 quote acts in my life, which are this podcast, my band Third Class, and my silly comedy troupe Bullskit Productions.
Yeah.
So I don't know which one my default is. Probably Third Class. And I come here to the studio, and we record with you. One of only 2 studios we've ever used because we trust you so much. And we met you, and you're still a young man now, but we met you when you were about 2 years older than I am now.
I was even a younger man.
A younger man.
Yes.
And what happened was we played at Cedars in 2001. You were probably about 33. Does that sound right? Something like that.
That could be about right.
And we met you, and you knew immediately, like, we played just our songs, some of which we still play today. Not many, but a few are still in the lineup, and you knew immediately. You threw some echo on, you threw this on, you were like, this is what these guys do. You never met us, we barely talked. You were like, I'm throwing these effects on these guys, I know what these guys are.
And your mother escorted you to
and
the
our
show.
mom escorted us, and our youngest brother Steve was there. He was a big part.
And the progression of that was, I remember your mom would come, she would bring you guys, she would stay, and then
she'd have to stay because we were too young.
Right. Then it seemed like maybe she would bring you guys and she wouldn't be there. Maybe she'd pick you up at the end.
When we got older,
Yeah, and then you started to drive, and then never saw your mom again.
Which is funny. It's like, why did we needed, number one, we needed her at the venue because we were too young. But number 2, it was like, eventually her van became the Third Class mobile, and we put a little magnet on it.
Yeah. But like, I'll always remember that because when the Infidels first started playing at Cedars, when we'd be opening for bands, parents would bring us there. Like we would have
thing, huh?
well, like maybe my parents would bring us, and John Hlumick's parents would pick us up at night, or vice versa. But it was a similar thing. But I always noted that. Because you guys were also incredibly young when you first started showing up there and playing shows. I mean, you were playing there before you were able to get in there legally as a patron.
Right.
But
accommodating parents is the common denominator, maybe.
Yes.
In this,
Yes.
Right. Khalid kind of always has this he has great parents, but he has a semi-begrudging tone when he talks to me about my mom. He's always like, she let you do whatever the hell you wanted, didn't you?
Right.
Isn't that great?
And for those of you that don't know who Khalid is Khalid Tabara of the Zoo.
Yes, and that's a very important act in Youngstown as well. Also coming through Ampreon. And you guys, go back to an episode called, what's it called? Paul Simon and Randy Newman, I think it's called. And that's me and Khalid chatting. Go back, listen to that episode. It's fun. I can name a million other things. But so we met you. You knew exactly what to do with us, and that coaxed us into the studio with you.
Oh.
And we had a good time in the studio.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, I think more or less it did. Jack and Peppy tried to talk me into being like, hey, we should do stuff that's not in our basement on a 4-track that we don't know how to do. And I was like, no, you're sellouts. That's stupid. And they were like, no. And you called me and said, I think you could do what you should do. Your vocals, they are what they are, whatever. Just get in the studio, see what happens. And I was like, I think he can do it. And so we did it. So yeah, it was like obviously verbal coaxing too, but we trusted you. So
Or at least Jack and Peppy did.
Jack and Peppy did, and I didn't.
Yes,
No,
yeah.
yeah. And so
I thank them for their vision.
yeah. And so yes, so we're coming up on a 10-year anniversary the first time we recorded here. And so that's kind of fun for us. We'd been going since '99, but didn't take studio recording seriously till 2006. So then you weren't a kid when we met you, but you were around my age. So, but why don't you go back further from that point and tell me where you came from?
Well, I grew up in West Middlesex, Pennsylvania.
Okay.
And I went to high school there, and I lived there. I lived there till sometime in the '90s, and then I moved to Youngstown. And the Infidels were started in West Middlesex, and we were largely based there. Then we started coming and playing here. Then we've got involved with management in Youngstown, and then I guess we became a Youngstown band. But it was created in West Middlesex. Going further back, I was a little kid there. I went to school there. And I lived in a kind of a semi-rural setting. The bass player John Wimmick of the Infidels lived right across the street from me, so it was kind of like a kid band that we started. We were the same age. We were born like 5 days apart. So I he's a person that I've known all my life, and still continue to play music with him. I guess it's been on and off, but we're still in each other's lives musically. So that's kind of where I come from, I guess. If I'm answering the question.
Yeah, that's a good. And then what were you like? What were you like as a kid? I remember you telling me when we were recording the Red Wheelbarrow here, we had this late night where we were running late, and you were just having conversation with us while you were kind of finishing up. Okay. And you talked. I don't think you didn't describe yourself.
Sometimes though I say things like to a room, and I'll just say things just to fill space.
Well, sure. That's what you're doing right now. I imagine the whole time.
A little bit, yeah.
But you jokingly described yourself as kind of a tough guy when you were young. Is that correct, or is that just kind of like you were messing with me?
Well, here let me. I know the people out there can't see this, but here is.
Oh, okay. We'll describe it.
Here is 17-year-old Pete Drivere.
So, okay, what we're looking at,
kind of like a quasi tough guy.
Yeah, what we're looking at is someone squinting as they inhale a cigarette between two fingers with kind of a fro. Is that good enough description? Yeah. I don't think I need to say anything else. So were you aggressively like, hey, don't mess with me type dude, or were you more just like a passively tough?
Hard to say. Hard to say. I mean, I think I have. I mean, if you're used to seeing me, in certain settings, I can be very serious and very focused.
I see you doing Sound at Cedar sometimes, and you're at the end of this big long recording session, and then concert, and then this at something called Nouveau Rock Festival. And I'll say, "How are you, Pete?" And you're like, overstimulated. And I say, "That's what she said," and you just give me a dry look and go back to work.
Yes,
that's you being serious.
Sure. For sure. If that's construed as something menacing, I suppose
it's not. It's just focused, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. It would be focused. Yeah. But I think the personification of the early Infidels, was more of a punk rock kind of band. It was, that's where our roots were in punk rock. So there was, maybe a bit of an image that we would never smile in pictures. We might smile in pictures today, but there's a day we'd never smile in pictures. very stone-faced and serious, as a punk rock band should.
And you have almost like a very well-known demeanor of being dry, pretty serious, and then all of a sudden, out of nowhere, a joke.
Yes.
Something I've fallen for every time after my sets with Third Class or solo as Third Class is you come up to me after.
Yeah.
I'm totally serious because I'm like, how was my set? How was my set?
So would you say that the live sound Pete Revere and the studio Pete Revere are two different Pete Reveres, though?
I see a lot more jokes in the studio, so yeah, sure.
Yeah. I think the studio, the Ampreon Pete Revere, is a lot more jovial.
Yeah.
A lot more silly. I mean, focused, but maybe less serious than the live sound. Wading through a sea of drunks, trying to do the best he can for the band on stage. Pete Revere, that you see at Cedars.
Yeah.
Which I feel often there I misinterpreted, because I am
see.
focused. I am doing a job while everyone's there, supposedly having a good time, and or maybe actually having a good time, and having drinks, maybe having several drinks, and I'm just not, I'm the straight guy at the the place where everyone's messed up, except for maybe largely the bands aren't, I mean in your case,
Yeah.
I know you're very focused and serious when you about your shows and whatever, so
Right.
you're not impaired
No.
during your shows. But maybe a large amount of people in the
Yeah.
audience is,
Totally, yeah.
and I'm, hardly ever usually impaired.
Plus,
Shows.
it's like it's a time thing. It's like the show has to happen A to B. Studio, yes, but a little bit more loose. It's like, hey, we can all sit here and figure this track out together.
Right.
Yeah.
We're in the studio. We're creating. Like. I mean, it has to be light. It has to be, while focused, it has to be light and airy in the studio.
And in the bar, it's like, hey, pay the sound guy for the night, not hourly. So I'm Pete, I'm in and out. Studio, I'm being paid hourly. Let's slow down. Let's just hang out.
I mean,
I'm just kidding.
I mean, perhaps. I mean,
I'm totally kidding. I think the two Petes are have become one in my head. Because I get to see you enough that I see you crack a joke at the end of my set, at the end of the thing, and maybe that's enabled because we're both focused and it affords you
Right,
the time.
right.
But I fall for you hitting me in the nuts after my set every time.
I
which
mean,
is
that's
hilarious.
the here. Let me show you how
Yeah.
to wrap this cable right.
Yep.
Here, just hold it right there. Like that's.
And
that was
I
my
bet
thing.
you I'm going to fall for it again, even having recorded me saying that.
Yeah, I know, but it's gonna.
So Pete always hits me in the balls with a cable at the end of my set by
But-
saying,
but
"Hey,
I mean-
check out how you wrap this thing."
Yes, but it always takes a few years in between.
Yeah, right. You're right.
So
So-
hopefully, at least for your sake,
For mine, it's
There-
all smooth. Yeah.
there's a few more years that this will go on. You know what I mean?
that this-
you're right.
Yeah.
I mean, for
thought
me,
you were gonna say- Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah. No, you're right. I hope that it does go on. I hope it happens again because it's hilarious. And it's a relief at the end of the set because I'm always like, oh, is the set, is everything done? And you're just like, I'm going to hit you in the nuts. That's what I'm
Right.
going to do.
exactly. Maybe
so-
we'll just skip the cable thing and I'll just nail you in the
punch
nuts.
me in the nuts
Just
at the end.
it's just going to be the thing that, hey Lee, boom.
It'll be like a Fight Club or some scene where I'm like, hey, Pete, punch me in the nuts after my set. You're like, what? I'm like, I said punch me in the nuts after my set.
Right.
You'll be like, why? I'm like, just do it.
Just do it.
But yeah, dealing with people at other venues such as Nyabingi, another venue in Youngstown that is now gone, with a guy named Greg who was a lot meaner than you, although he had the best of intentions. You came off as like just right for me. I became toughened up enough as a young boy playing in a band that I could differentiate and be like, this Pete guy, yeah, he's focused, he's dry, but he's got some. I see that twinkle in his eye, I see that sense of humor. So toughness. Don't limit it to when you're a kid now. You got to be tough to go on tour. You've toured many places. Tell me from
I like your
0 to
transition.
10.
I like your transition.
Yeah, I'm really good at that. Not
That's really good.
But yeah,
That's
I'm
really
glad.
good.
But 0
I
to
can tell
10.
you've been doing this for a little bit.
A little, yeah. It's getting better. You can hear back, listen to the first one. You'll be like, it's a train wreck. From year 1 to now, tell me a couple little like tour stories or your best and worst, and tell me some places and some things.
Okay. Well, I guess I have good tour memories. That would be more. I don't have any spectacular stories of anything, but like what I do collect in my mind, and I remember the fun things, which might seem kind of mundane, but one of the first things I remember, and this would be going back to the later middle '80s or early late '80s, whatever, around 1986, '87, when the Infidels were on tour with the Dead Boys, and it was, I think, maybe the third show we did of the tour was in Harrisburg, Pennsylvania, and it was up till then, the first two shows, the first show was in Cleveland. It was at the Fantasy Theater, which was, a small theater, kind of like a rock concert kind of thing where people sat in seats and we were up on a big high stage and played. And that was a lot of fun. And then the next show was at a club called Graffiti in Pittsburgh, which was a large club. We'd played there before, and it was kind of the same thing, like a big stage, very, very rock concert. But this show in Harrisburg was in like a Knights of Columbus. We played on the floor. It was like a real DIY kind of thing. The promoter that set it up must have just had enough money just to pay for the show and get the bands in.
Rented a hall and just
rented a hall, and it was in the middle of winter. It was really freezing cold in there, but I remember that show because it really made me like Harrisburg, and I've always enjoyed going to Harrisburg ever since and playing in front of people from Harrisburg. They really are fans of rock and roll, and it's always a really great experience. But anyway, that was the first night on that tour where we kind of blew the Dead Boys off the stage, and the people were like yelling for the Infidels. Bring back the Infidels when the Dead Boys are on. So that was kind of a nice, a pleasant memory for me. I mean, it kind of agitated the Dead Boys, but
yeah.
But,
well, that's impressive. I mean, and it's cool that you name Harrisburg, PA, because you've been. I mean, I don't want to talk you up too much, but just as a Youngstowner. You've been everywhere, man. You've toured like everywhere, correct? Like, I mean, you recently have toured through Europe and
yeah. I mean, we've gone to a lot of places. The tour that I speak of, that was our first real tour that we, toured the eastern seaboard of the United States.
Yeah.
And, since then, in the years to come, I've played in a lot of other places, in most of the, I mean, I've never played in Alaska or Hawaii, but
sure.
But I mean, I've played in, California, I played in Texas, played in Florida, played places that are far from here to go,
Yeah.
But yeah, since then, like in the Poets, we've gone to England, we've gone to the Czech Republic, we played in Germany, we played in Sweden, we're about to do a tour this coming spring that's going to start. It's going to start in Spain. We've done a lot of things. We played in Scotland. Lots of places.
Cool.
So I mean, I've never played in Asia or any. I've never, done a big show in Budokan.
Right.
But still, like Cheap Trick.
Is that a goal now? Are you trying to cross stuff off at this point, or?
Well, yeah, sure. I'm always crossing stuff off.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
That's cool, but still, to know that Harrisburg is a rock and roll type place.
Oh yeah, Harrisburg. Harrisburg's
that's
a wonderful
news.
place.
I didn't know that. That's
yeah,
cool.
yeah. I mean, it's a terrific little scene down there. I mean, it's not amazing, but it's
right.
It's one of those, tertiary cities you go to, like that you might pass through, and it's really awesome.
Nice. The idea of you naming someplace in PA is cool, but then, and growing up in West Middlesex, it's not that you're like, oh, I'm a PA, I'm not in Ohio. Like, that's just one and the same to you, right? It's all this rural area and whatever.
Yeah, I mean, I never, like
Steelers, not Browns, and all that.
Speaking of like West Middlesex versus Harrisburg, like I always distinctly viewed, Western Pennsylvania is almost like it could be a completely different state from Eastern Pennsylvania. Philadelphia, the Philadelphia Phillies and the Philadelphia Eagles. I mean, that's
different.
That was a whole different world from the Steelers and the Browns and the Indians and the Pirates. It's
right.
like,
And obviously, I'm not a sports person, but I just like grew up in a family that apparently was a Browns family and that paid attention. And it made, I mean, that doesn't mean anything to me, but like Ohio, I don't know anything about sports.
Right.
So I'm like, cool, we're Ohio people, whatever.
Yeah, I mean, but I mean, I'm sure to people in Western Ohio, the Bengals are
of course.
football. You know what I
Right.
mean? Like,
And I'm guilty of lumping a lot of people into the same thing because we're in a rural area and we make art. So I think we have these commonalities. But what do you think of Ohio? What do you like it here? Do you want to be here? I mean, you'd be somewhere else if you didn't, right? Or are you like, I'm sick of this?
Well, I mean, the only complaint that I have with this area of the country is the older I get, the less that I enjoy the winter. The winters here. I like warm weather and beaches, and I'm kind of that at heart. So, someday I suppose I see myself maybe living in a warmer climate. Maybe near
Yeah.
the water. Every time I've gone to a place, like whether I go out to Malibu or in the Los Angeles area, or if I go to Spain, or if I go to France, and I'm in a beach area there, it's always like, oh, I'd love to live here.
That's
And
it,
like
yeah.
always trying to plot and plan how I could uproot my business and my profession and my music and whatever, and get to a place like that. But perhaps I will someday. But I mean, I have no complaints with Ohio. It's a great place. It's and it's what I know.
Well, now a lot of people would view it like you're saying something like, how could I possibly ever move and get my business going somewhere else? But a lot of people talk like, oh, if you go to California or New York, your business just built itself, and they act like in Ohio it doesn't survive. What are your thoughts on that mentality? Or is that completely wrong?
Well, I mean, for me anyway, like just speaking, what I do at Ampreon. I mean, I've worked in from this point last year, I've probably done 300 sessions in 365 days. Maybe more. I mean, I've pretty much worked away my summer. And this week that we're doing this podcast, this interview, this is the first week this summer where I've actually taken a vacation. And that's in preparation for the New York show that the poets have coming up. So we hit the practicing a little bit harder this week. So I had to kind of just take some time off. And I kind of needed a little bit. I just finished a several week-long record with Matt Polka. I kind of need, we were doing, some long days, bringing a lot of musicians to play on this. So I kind of needed a break after, all the sessions I did before that and starting this project with Matt.
Yeah, man.
Needed the break.
So is this like a picture of someone who's cornered a market in Youngstown? Is that why you've got all this business? Because you've been here a long time and you've established.
I think I do have clientele. I mean, I do have clientele, and I think I've proven myself with a lot of different clients over the years. But if I were to start today in this business, I wouldn't start in this business today. It's I don't see in this current climate, of home recording and and just what you would have to do to get a studio to this level.
Yeah.
I don't think it could be done today, other than a lottery win or
pretty wild,
or someone, like an inheritance or something like that. And there's probably a lot more lucrative things that one could do with that money, than the throw. I mean, to do something like this, you have to be super, super passionate about it and be fully prepared that, hey, if the phone doesn't ring, I'm still going to
got all this gear.
I'm going to be using this stuff and be making music and doing things, And I mean, luckily for myself, that's how I see myself. And luckily, I started at a time where, I could work and, throw money back into buying equipment. I mean, and obviously it's my passion. It's what I do, whether it's guitar amps or guitars or compressors or, tape machines or microphones or
Yeah.
whatever. I mean, it's a constant obsession for me, just because I love it. And admittedly, it's a money dump down the rabbit hole, even though I do make money from it, and I mean, my point of view is, the better equipment that I buy, and the more time I spend into learning that equipment and refining my skills, the better recordings that I'm going to make for the bands in Youngstown, and in this area, and the bands that come to me from, far out of the area to record here, so, it helps me keep up a competitive edge, or a superior edge. And, it also, for those who choose to come here, it helps me give them some really great sounding recordings. So that's kind of, my passion, my motive, my method.
No food for thought, no money in the bank, no high ideals, no gas in the tank, no God, no guns, no guts, no fear, no island like the mine, no ship like beer. We are the captains and we're the mates, somewhere a paradise awaits upon the oceans of despair. No island like the mine, no ship like beer. When all this work to no avail, we'll pop the top and set the sail. The sea is calm and the sky is clear. No island like the mine, no ship like beer.
I'm in a band who you would think we would take this other route. We're so DIY, we're so sloppy, we're so kind of like, just like indie, whatever that is. But it's like, for some reason, polishing a turd in a really good way, not to self-deprecate, just to be funny, works for us to come to a studio like this. We like it. Some people have said, no, you need to have muddied it up more. You need to have gone crazier. And as time passes, though, I stand by the old recordings, because as things get really ridiculously overproduced on the radio, and as things get like overly perfected, and everybody needs a metronome, and everybody needs, I make electronic music,
Right.
like to have polished a turd that I really love is to have exactly clarified what we are supposed to do. People that do those muddy recordings, what they're doing is like White Stripesy stuff, where where each beat's going to land, and you see this blues like structure. We don't have that. We have three guys doing three different things all the time, and we need a good studio to express those three moving parts.
Yeah, and I
think it's great.
I think when in the history of making third class records, I mean, we never really overthink things, and we move very, very quickly, and and I mean, it's a very immediate procedure, and it's probably one of the most immediate methodologies that I employ, on a lot of the projects. I mean, most projects that I do, are a little bit lengthier, but like, we typically, do a record in a day or two. I mean, it's pretty quickly concluded, and probably, if anything, we probably have sped the process up. You know what I mean? Like
throughout the years.
But I'll the one thing that people tell me all the time that are used to hearing third class is like, the comments I usually get are like, "Wow," and of course people are only going to say nice things to me.
Of course.
If they're referring to something that I did, that you rarely get someone that comes up and says, "I heard that really sucks."
Exactly.
You rarely get that, but the people that feel moved enough to talk to me about your band say, that it's the sound of the band that is unperturbed but captured very well. And and I've had a couple people say to me, especially after we did the first record, "Wow, I really had my doubts of how this was going to be, like coming to you, I thought this was going to be too slick, but it was just like, it's just like them, in a very clear sense."
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But it's still third class. But anyway, that's I bring that up because you're bringing it up, and people have mentioned it to me, throughout the years, and usually I get comments after every record we do together, about that, and it's usually like, "Wow, good job, man! You did a good job with those guys, and you didn't spoil their thing." You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But I've learned that, and I've since before the first record, when you approached me about doing it, that was one thing that I didn't want to do. I didn't want to, because the band is such a unique three-way thing of these guys doing this unusual thing. It's not like you're not reminiscent of this band or this band or this band. It's just this unique thing that you guys have done in your house, like when you were 15. And you've never strayed from that. Because all the members have stayed the same. You've never switched a drummer.
Right.
No one's ever left. It's the same. It's the same machine. It just it just goes on in time. But I think it's important with that machine, and it's never been influenced by a lot of outside things. I mean, maybe it has, and only you know that, or Jack and Pep know that. But I think it's important to not defile that with any kind of slick production methods.
Yeah.
It's just like record it well and leave it the heck alone.
Yeah, and the reason I brought it up is exactly what you said. It's like we use it for just like a slightly different reason than what I imagine other musicians use it for. It's like you said, lengthier sessions that usually involves like layers and highlights and things that we don't usually do, and I'm all for that. Some of my favorite bands do things like that, but I do like that like you're a vehicle for like getting our live sound just like cut and print, just do it. Like and some people think we should. There's a certain kind of California surfer echoey thing happening, fuzz thing, and they hear our fuzzy bass and they think that's where we should be, and it's not true. It's like slick to just a point. It's not slick in that you set us to this perfect thing and we're now these top 40 sounding people.
Yeah.
It's like slick in that like everything's clear, like literally.
Yeah, of the four, I think of the four projects that we've done, I don't think we've ever overdubbed a guitar.
No.
We've never or more than one guitar.
We've never done anything other than like, try this over there. Like it's never been intentionally like we're going to add a highlight of this.
But we've it's always kept to the bare minimum of what it is on stage. I think that that's the secret of it. It's like we may work on making the keyboard sound a bit better than just plugging it straight into a console or a preamp, but there's never anything that's overdone. There's never anything. I fail to remember any time that we've overdubbed an extra part of something.
No, nothing that I can think. Nothing that ever wasn't just an intro or outro to something. It was never like add this like thing, this section that won't be live.
No, like let's double the guitar up. We've never ever done that. It's always just been what it is,
And that's a fun thing, and that's more specific to us, obviously. But I mean, it speaks to like the talent of you in a studio, and it also speaks to like, home recordings are cool, and people that do them. I've had a lot of bands advise just to lots of other friends to be like, do it at home, man. Get your gear together at home. And we're like, you know what? Even if we had all this gear, we really want somebody. We want someone over our shoulder. We just need someone over our shoulder. They don't have to say much, but they just have to be like, do it one more time. You know what? Let this bleed through. Just little tiny things that we know we can't think of.
A little objective opinion.
Yeah, and I'm a firm believer that no one really knows what they sound like. They can't. They can't get outside themselves.
Right.
So we need, you or we use Sam at Historian. Like we need somebody over our shoulder. So anyways, getting back to just sound obviously is your thing, and like touring and Ohio and this and that. Did you grow up like, were you raised a certain way in Ohio, like religiously or anything like that? You don't have to talk about that if you don't want to, but were you raised like, I'm this rock and roll kid because I came out of like the Bible Belt, or was it not really like that for you?
My parents are, my parents are religious people. I think my father, questions things more than my mother does. When I was a kid, I went to church. When I was a teenager, I fought going to church. I guess I stopped going to church as soon as I possibly could.
Sure.
You know, but I mean, it's not that I don't have religious principles, or it's not that I'm a pronounced atheist.
Sure.
You know, but I'm not a practicing religious person. You know, I'm much, and I mean, I think it's kind of rooted in I wanted to sleep in. You know, like
Yeah.
you know, I didn't want to I didn't want to be at church at 10 o'clock in the morning. I wanted to, it's my day off. You know, it's like, you know, I stayed up late Saturday night. You know,
Yeah.
I was 13. You know, it's like,
I share that with you a little in that, like, I work in a warehouse, and I like, no one wants to work the 3 p.m. They're all like, I love the 5. They come in at like 4 or 5 and leave at like 2 or 3, and they're like, see, that's cool because you get it out of the way, and then you have the rest of your day free. And I'm like, the rest of your day free to go to bed?
Yeah.
It's crap, man. It was a very literal, like, want just not to have to set an alarm.
right, exactly.
I don't know where that comes from.
And,
but,
and there's so many things on late night TV that you're just missing out on. You know, it's
yeah, I mean, and just knowing that you can put on something and watch it or listen to music or whatever.
Oh, yeah.
And know that you can fall asleep at any point, and
Right.
your body will just wake up from the daytime being there.
Yes.
Like, I mean, yeah, that's something that you and me share. I don't know why I've never understood, and it's worked to my advantage in that I'll be like, I'll work the weird shift that you call the graveyard shift, even though it's just a
Right, right.
I
And
don't
it's
know
fun,
why people want
it's fun
that.
to stay up late too.
Yeah, those are the kind of people that stay up late anyways and then just get up early, and they think that they're saving themselves something, and then they have this huge emotional breakdown at some point.
Yeah, because they've just wasted their life.
Yeah, and it happens like every 2 weeks probably. But anyways, yeah, I wanted to ask you about, like, aside from music that we're involved in and stuff, I see that you're kind of this classic rock and roll person. I see a book over here that says Keith Richards' Life. I see an Elvis poster. You appreciate, like, the classics to a degree, obviously.
Yeah, I mean, and I think that just begs to the generation that I'm probably at the tail end of. You know.
Sure.
And I mean, you know, a lot of, you know, that's just. I mean, I guess for my age, I do have a older taste in music than, you know, say some people my age that are still into music. But, you know, I still think where I am in age group, you know, the stuff that I listen to, I mean, it makes sense for my age group. You know.
Well, I know a lot of people like you around my age that are always like 10 years back too. They're always
Right.
like I know you're not, I'm not saying you're stuck somewhere. You follow things, but they're like people my age kind of idolize. If they like pop, they idolize like Hall & Oates. That was before my time.
Yeah, you know, and I guess to clarify, you know, what you said, like, I don't really follow things, you know, like
you're not up on current things right now.
you know, like, I mean, I am just because, you know, I surround myself with musicians, you know, of all ages, you know, like I, you know, I my social circle, you know, is probably with you know, kids that are in their, you know, mid-20s, you know what I mean? Like, you know, it's because I spent a lot of time with them at the studio, and you know, and you know, I mean, so a great part of my day is spent with younger people. So, like, you know, yeah, I'm, you know, very aware of me, and you know, I like newer music, you know, but I'm also a songwriter, and you know, I don't try to follow things. I don't try to, you know, I think that's the worst thing a songwriter could do. You know, because the songs come from in you. You know, if you start emulating and trying to stay current, and it just ruins everything. So, like, personally, I don't try to follow any kind of trend or you know, or stay current on things. I think that's, well, you know, I'll fall into little periods where I might do that. But then I always kind of recoil from that. Like,
so it's not a disdain for anything modern. You're just saying sometimes you have to avoid a certain amount of it so that you don't get, like, pulled into a trend. So you're not like, oh, well, I have to do this now. You know, that kind of
thing. And I think there's nothing more. I think there's nothing more abhorrent to me, musically, from a songwriting perspective, than being the type of person that feels like they have to keep up. I just think that's a mistake.
Yeah. Oh, well, that's
like
smart.
for me, like from my point of view, I think I just don't want to do that. I don't, you know. So it's easy. It's easy. It's for me. It's the path of least resistance to only pay attention to things that catch my ear. You know what I mean? Like I never make a point to see what's going on, what's happening. I mean, I see it enough. You know what I mean? Like because I'm so immersed in the music scene. But yeah, I mean to be the guy who tries to stay current, keep up. To me, that's just. It would just be too much of an overload, you know, to my creativity.
Okay.
You know,
well, as a fan, it sounds like you're kind of saying, like, as a fan, you'll take in what you can take in, but as a songwriter, you're like, hey, like, I don't have time for. I'm just going to take what really hits.
Well, yeah, I think as a fan of music, you know, when you're a teenager, you know, you really develop your musical personality, and you know, and then that changes slightly through your 20s, but then you're kind of like, you know. You're kind of set, and I never trust. I never trust people who are like 35 or 40 or 45 years old who keep getting on these new tracks of music. I tend to think there's a disingenuousness there with their character, and I mean that might sound harsh, but I really do believe that. I never trust them. Like you know, it's like people that are real, you know, they form their musical styling in their teens and then maybe refine it a bit, or maybe they make a shift in their 20s. They do a 90-degree shift or a 180-degree shift, and they go somewhere else, but then they usually stick with it, you know. And then you know they might have a soft spot for. You know, like people my age, like you know, they might have a soft spot. They might not be into Kiss, but man, I remember when I was 14, I just love Kiss, you know, like, you know, and they had these 4 Kiss albums, you know, and then sometimes they'll just revert to those and
knowingly that it's only nostalgia that's holding.
Sure, or you know, they come back to it because it's there's something in them and they really like that, you know. It's like, so there's nothing wrong with that, you know, but I mean, what I do find is I do not like to just purposely try to stay current and keep up on what's happening in music, because in this day and age too, trends just come and go so quick, you know, they really do. It's like, you know what's a really, you know, I mean, you know, is a band like Modest Mouse even super relevant today? You know what I mean? Like they may not be, you know what I mean? Like in fact they're not, you know. I mean, they are to people that grew up with them, you know what I mean, that were 15 and they're Modest Mouse fans, but like are they really cutting edge of rock and roll with 15-year-old kids today? No way. They're not.
Right.
You know?
I see what you
mean. You know, kids that are 28 maybe, you know what I mean? But
that's true. Yeah, I found that you're kind of right in the full circle back to whatever you enjoyed when you were younger, because as much as I do make an attempt to try to find what I've found is I find the same bands over and over. Like I may have dumped a few of the bands I liked in the 90s. Like I was I think at my soul, I was a Soul Asylum and Collective Soul type person. And those two bands now, I'm not so keen. I'm like, the vocals are kind of, I don't know. But I found new ones. I found like, you know, like whatever there is. So it's like, there's not a trend happening, but whatever soft rock or like weird ballad, I don't know why that's my thing.
Played with Collective Soul.
Did you? That's awesome.
Yeah.
See, there was a time where I couldn't help it. I bought every album. That's awesome. You guys played with it. That's so cool.
I never liked.
You know what? It's weird. Now when I listen back, I'm like, what was I doing? What was I doing? Like,
but you know what?
But the genre that they come from, it's like, they're this like slick like take on it. But if you pull off that weird overproduction and they're and all that crap, like underneath is like Wilco maybe, or underneath is like this certain genre where I'm like, hey.
Yeah, but if you were like 14 years old and really got into Collective Soul, I mean, there's nothing wrong with that. You know,
no, I'm not gonna like rescind that. It's just that like down the line, the Verve maybe was replaced them in my head, and then like now like maybe the slower records of Wilco has replaced that. There's always something replacing that for me.
Yes.
So it's not really a trend thing.
The slower records of Wilco were good records.
Yeah, like any of the slow songs at the end of AM, or like any of the like spacier ones on that new Star Wars record, or maybe something in the middle of like that Ghost is Born. There's like love songs.
Yeah.
Or whatever. Like, yeah, I'm always going to be a love song person. That's what I know. I was like that as a teenager. I may have gone, like you said, I tried not to be when I was in my 20s, and I came back at 30 being like, love songs. That's who I do. That's
Sure,
what I am.
sure.
I'm going to listen to Al Green, Hall & Oates, Curtis Mayfield all the time because they have these good love songs that have this little bit of spunk to them. And, I mean, I think that's what's like fun about it, is that you can stay semi-current by accident without like plugging in
Right,
completely.
and at the same time, it's like, like the music of Third Class. I mean, those things may creep in there, like in your head, but they don't really. It's not like you're a Hall & Oates sound like band.
No,
you know
no,
what I mean? Like,
and
like,
part of the reason that like I know you said like it sounds like there's not that much outside influence, and I think there just can't be a certain amount. The way we do things and the way the minimal amount of music theory and education applied to it, like completely handicaps us into always having our own sound. And I think that's why that is. I think there's actually a physical like limitation to what we do that I like.
stay dumb, Lee.
Yeah, stay dumb. If not, then we'll start sounding just like Hall & Oates. But tell me then if you had to take just one. And I ask this to people sometimes. It's kind of a boring stock question, but usually the answer is good, so I ask it. If you had to take one song, just one song, with you the rest of your life, and only be able to hear that song, take it to an island, whatever you want to say, whatever metaphor, whatever thing. What song would that be?
Well, that song, I suppose, would eventually, on that desert island, would make you sharpen a stick and stick it through your eye and end your life.
Yes, you could turn it off, but you're probably still right.
For me,
What song you want to die to?
let's see. I Can't Get No Satisfaction by the Rolling Stones. And I was going to say Brown Sugar by the Rolling Stones, but I think I'm going to go with I Can't Get No Satisfaction.
See, you're a classic person, man. You're just like a classic. That's a good answer.
I mean, in 1965, the summer of 1965, that song ruled the radio. You
Just a knockout of a song.
You couldn't you couldn't turn the dial without hearing it. That truly established that band in the world.
That's a good answer, man.
They were a second-rate band until that song came out. And
Really?
yeah.
I love the Otis Redding cover of that song too. That's a well-written song. I'm not a Stones like person per se, but I see why. I mean, that has the perfect amount of pep to just take with you forever, and to stick a sharp object through your eye while you listen to.
Yes.
So, in conclusion, can you say our little tagline? Look, Mom, we're on a podcast.
Look, Mom, we're on a podcast.
And are there any words you'd like to impart as you depart?
Yes. To those musicians out there, always stay true to what you do. Stay true to your beliefs. Practice hard. Don't be lazy. And record at Ampreon.
Well, yeah. And guys,
Duh.
Go to AmpreonRecorder.com. Did I get that right? Is that your site?
Yeah.
Go to AmpreonRecorder.com and
It's
you'll
terribly.
get a discount if you mention. No, you won't. If you mention Nursery podcast now. Maybe you will.
Maybe
Actually,
I will.
I mean, if you go
Yes.
to them and
The
say
the
you
next
guys know
person
Third
that calls
Class.
me other than Lee Boyle
Yeah.
and mentions the Nursery podcast and books time at Ampreon is going to get a discount.
You heard it here first, people, and only here, because we're not going to say it anywhere else. What Pete just said.
Yeah.
Go call
What he said.
Ampreon at AmpreonRecorder.com. Find their number. He'll give you a discount if you mention Nursery podcast. You record that band Third Class there? They sound like a turd, but polished. I'll take it. Okay, well, cool, man. And then will you say, just for my uses later on, if you don't mind me, can you give us a station ID? This is Pete Drivere. You're listening to Nursery, a podcast from Ohio's creative voice. And say from the Deadbeat Poets.
This is Pete Drivere from the Deadbeat Poets, and you're listening to the Nursery podcast from something, 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 Ohio creative something.
That's perfect. I don't want anything else. Thanks, man. We'll see you guys later. Thanks for listening. And make sure you visit Third.
See ya.
And Pete's saying bye to his phone,
See
too.
ya.
Make sure you listen to listen. Go to thirdclass.net and bullskit.com. See ya.
Hey everybody, this is Jessica K from You Breast Believe. That's you, like the letter U, breast, like titties, and believe as in duh, you better believe it. We're a podcast out of Wichita, Kansas, and we hope you give us a listen. But right now, you are listening to Nursery, a podcast from Ohio's Creative Voice.